Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Zero G podcast with your usual hosts, or at least two of them, myself, Garrick, and Aki Glancy, and joined by a very special guest, Cilia. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. I am in the land of Swansea in Wales, getting ready to go to Miku Expo.
Awesome. How are you doing, Cilia?
I'm good. I'm in this VR space. Virtual. I'm not a virtual YouTuber, but I can pretend to be. So
what we all aspire to is to be keys in the eye.
So yeah, we're just gonna hang out for a couple minutes, let people get into the stream, and then we're just going to get started. And we'll do some housekeeping as we go. So yeah, just let us know in chat if there's anything up with the audio. Hopefully we won't have the tech issues we had last time. It's taken us long enough to come back, so hopefully we would have worked those kinks out. And yeah, no, we're just going to have a fun time discussing music, like always.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, everybody, CN Crusher sends her regards. She could not join us this today because she is currently moving house, and so she's getting her computer set up and her internet set up and getting all situated. So luckily, we had planned to have Cilia anyway as our special guest for this particular week's podcast and live stream. So it just ended up working out anyway because now we have the lovely Cilia.
Indeed. Yeah. Yeah. Like the last, we were going to do a cast in November. When did we do the last one? Was it like start of October or something? I
think yes, it was. It was.
Mm-hmm. It just life is getting in the way for all of us at the moment, and luckily, Cilia was able to step in for CN, which was very fortuitous. So yes, big thanks to Cilia.
A reminder to all of you who are joining us: if you use Twitter and want to participate in our Q&A section for today, please remember that the hashtag is #ZG podcast. You'll see the hashtag in the description of this video and podcast. So make sure that when we come to the Q&A section, you are tweeting at us with that hashtag, and we will hopefully get to all of your questions when we get to the Q&A sections. I
think as you're in England, you legally have to say ZG podcast.
Don't you tell me what to do. I don't have to say Z, and I don't have to say H. It sounds weird when I do it because they're like, why is the American trying to speak English?
We like the effort. Like, it's very important.
That's true. That's true. But it's so funny with the letter Z or Z as the it's that H makes sense to me because I've heard other people say H, but Z is something that I just would never use, not because I don't like it or anything, but just because it would never have occurred to me to use it in place of Z. Because to me, Z is a music producer.
Well, yeah, that too. That
so I'm like,
too.
So every time I say Z, I think, I'm like, I'm not talking about the music producer. I'm talking about the letter.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we've got a veritable little group in the stream, so yeah, we're just gonna get kick-started. Good morning to everyone in UK and Europe, and good evening to the US. It is evening, isn't it?
It is evening.
Yeah.
It is evening.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, good morning and good evening wherever you are in the world. Everyone's waiting for their copy of Smash Ultimate, it seems. One person isn't. A single person joins me in the chat, not waiting for Smash Ultimate, but hey ho. Right, we're just going to do some quick housekeeping, and then we're going to dive into the topics. So yes, first important thing, as Aki's already mentioned, please use the hashtag ZG Podcast. That's where we're going to be picking up questions from you. You can also drop them into the chat, but the chat tends to whiz by pretty quick, and we can't always like reference who asked the question or even pick the questions up. So hashtag ZG Podcast. Additionally, you'll see in the bottom right there is a new discount code. It is ZGP0, as in the number 0612, and that will get you 40% off nearly everything on the Zero G store. The only exceptions are Vocaloids, Ethra titles, and our latest releases. But in upcoming news, we will have all Vocaloids off on discount as of tomorrow at 30% for the entire month of December in the Zero G winter sale. So I think we've got maximum discounts of like 65% happening throughout December. Awesome. A load of stuff's on 60, 50%, 40%, 30% for Vocaloids. So yeah, and we're going to be running that till like the 4th of January. So yeah, you can get in a day early on some of those discounts if you like. What else we got? Zero G's got a new title out called Nordic Noir. If you've not already seen the trailer, I fully recommend you do so, because it is yours truly's work, and I'm very proud of it.
It's really good.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun doing it. The stream's gone offline. Oh no, we're back. Okay. My you want to like theme through your work. It's pretty good for it. In other news, Miku Expo is happening in London on Saturday. Tomorrow, for me and Aki. I will be in and about the area from like 2:30, 3ish. I've got a couple meetings to make, and then I'll be around. Come and say hi to me. I'm gonna put the Zero G Twitter on my phone, so you guys can get in touch with me if you do want to meet up. But I'll be meeting Aki during the day and hanging out with her too. Aki, what are your movements over Miku Expo?
Yes, I am getting into London at around 12:30, but I have to immediately go to a meeting where I'm being interviewed and doing a bunch of stuff. But I should hopefully finish between 2 and 2. Miku Expo, the Paint with Miku event. You can just look for me, and I'll be wearing my Dinah and Miku custom-made Miku Expo shirt. Just look for anybody who's wearing a shirt that has Dinah or has Miku on it, and that will be me.
I think some of the chat's having problems with the stream. Do you just want to run over that again quickly?
Yes. Look for me. I will be wearing a Miku and Dinah shirt between 2 and 2:30. I will be arriving at the Paint with Miku event. So I will be at that, and then of course I will be at the concert for the entirety of the concert, and I will be there. And if anybody wants to meet with me, have any questions, give me hugs or whatever, I will be at Paint with Miku and at the concert.
Cool. Celia, you're not going to be at Miku Expo, unfortunately.
No, I went to the one in San Francisco last year, I think.
Oh, nice. How was it?
That 2 years ago. It was okay, but I do want to go again when they have a better set list, because it was a lot of really old songs. But from the London or from the Europe tour this time, it seems like there's a lot of newer songs. So like, I'll probably go now that they're doing that now.
Nice, fair enough. What have you got going on? Is there anything you want to tell anyone you're going to, or shout anything out at this point?
I got a Patreon if you are into Vocaloid or Utao stuff. I post VSQs and USDs and works in progresses and such every month if that is interesting to you. And also I go to Anime Expo every year, so if you are thinking about going, I will probably be there. 90% sure I'm gonna be there. I got my ticket, so yeah.
Lucky. Cool. I want to go one day. I got to go to that one day and just hug people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky because I'm in California, so it's not that far to go. I mean, it's like a 6-hour drive or like a 2-hour plane ride, but it's better than going across the country for it. So
right.
Yeah, definitely. Aki, have you got anything going on apart from Miko Expo at the moment?
My new album is out. Ghosts of Artificial Trees, featuring Mocha, the Chinese male Vocaloid. So if you are a fan of Chinese Vocaloid music, please feel free to pick it up digitally. It's either on Bandcamp, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Play, Google Music, or Apple Music, iTunes, all of the major music distribution salon. So if you'd like to show support for me with my best album I have ever made ever, and it's much different than anything you've heard me make before, if you've been following me on YouTube, please check it out and show some support. I would appreciate it. And hopefully we will be releasing it in China very soon as well. So nice. if anybody who is tuning in today is from China, look forward to it. It's available on Taobao right now as a pre-order. Fingers crossed that it is well received over there.
Nice. Cool stuff.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Sorry, excuse me. You're going to have to deal with me coughing for this episode, unfortunately.
How dare you?
Oh, don't. It's been a nightmare. Cool. Okay. Just have a quick scroll through chat. Miriam V5. Yes, I'm going to keep the network as stable as possible. I'm hosting a little bit further away from my router than normal, but fingers crossed everything should be fine. Once I close the stream window down, my internet should get a lot better.
And I'll be keeping an eye out on it, so don't worry about that.
Yes. 50% sale on after Christmas, so I can get Dex and Dana. It won't drop that low, unfortunately. 30% is sort of the highest we ever discount Vocaloids.
But 30% is a great discount, considering the Dex and Dana are already so affordable.
Yes, yeah, in comparison to a lot of other Vocaloids out there on the market. I want Miriam V5. You're going to be waiting a long time for that. And did the coffee get make the day better? The coffee did not make the day better. Thank you for asking. However, I am ecstatic now. I am podcasting with these fine folk, so the day is already better. So, right, without further ado, let's try and keep the show moving and go into our first topic, which is going to be something along the lines of start to finish treatment of vocals and Vocaloid sort of tuning, as we have our resident expert and friend in Cilia, the one and only. Yeah, we thought it would be a great opportunity to really dive into the idea of how to make your Vocaloid tracks really come to life, and how to get the best out of tuning your vocals, and how you can think of them in a way like they are organic vocals from a real vocalist, and how that can help your process in making them real. So in our sort of preamble chat when we were discussing what we're going to talk about, I think we all came to the sort of the agreement that it's very important to assess the strengths and weaknesses of a vocal before you drop it into a song. So, and it shouldn't be different coming from a vocalist and a Vocaloid. All the Vocaloids are very unique in their sort of output, in their sort of style and tone, the way that humans are. So some humans are better suited to some genres, some are best others. So yeah, like, shall we start off just talking about how you can sort of assess that?
Well, in that respect, allow me to point a question at Celia. Now, I approach when assessing the strengths of a Vocaloid, a lot of times we'll have to deal with the music I'm composing, because generally I don't do covers. But Celia, you almost entirely do covers, but you do also work with other producers. Now, when you are doing your covers, how do you choose which Vocaloid to use? Because you have quite a few, and the variety you have each have their own strengths and weaknesses. How do you determine which one you're going to use and which attributes you're looking for?
Yeah, so like when I first hear a song, like when I'm choosing what to cover, I'll, like, if I don't, like, sometimes I'll automatically have a voice in my head and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, like this voice would totally, like, sounds totally like the singer already. So some songs, like, my mind just immediately can match a Vocaloid that would work because of just the voice tone matches the original singer's voice tone. But other times when there isn't a Vocaloid as close to the original voicer or the original singer, or I just have like a different idea, sometimes I just brute force it and I literally just go down my list of Vocaloids until someone sounds good. I do that sometimes, but I'll normally at least have an idea of, like, if I want a male or female vocal, and then I'll go from, if I don't have a general voice type I'm going for, then I'll do the brute force method when I just go through it all. But yeah, I normally start from some kind of, like, preference though. Like, if it's a song that's kind of a darker song, I won't go for like a crazy strong vocal or anything, you know.
Does accent, because each Vocaloid is voiced by a different voice actor or singer, so they each kind of have their own accent or way of pronunciation. Does that ever matter to you?
Yeah. So like, for an extreme case, I'll give an example. Like, I would never use Yumemi Nemu for like anything serious because
I get that.
her voice is like super, I don't know about nasally, but it's special, and it's not the kind of voice that really will go with most, like, the way her accent is. It's just not really usable in most serious type songs. Like, it would just make it into a comedy, like a comedic song if you used her. And yeah, for it's like Enandu pretty much, because she can be used for almost anything. They all kind of have their consonants are a little bit lighter, and well, they're V4 or V3 versions. Their consonants are a little bit. Did this?
Sorry, it dropped out for a moment.
Okay.
Sorry, just go back like 2 seconds. Just go back a couple minutes. Sorry, I interrupt you midstream.
Let's see. So I guess for
how Miku is really versatile.
Oh yeah. For like, so Miku, you can pretty much use it for anything, but like Rin and Len and Mako, especially Kaito is the worst. Not worst in general, but like worst for finding something that will work with his poor consonants. It's really hard. You have to think kind of how the instrumental will blend with the vocals, and depending on like the Vocaloid's consonants, they may or may not blend with the instrumental as well. So you have to kind of test with. I mean, if you only have like a few Vocaloids to test with, it's a lot easier. For me, like, I just have a huge list, so it's kind of like, I mean, I have a lot of options, but on the other hand, it makes it a lot longer for me to choose vocals sometimes.
So very much it's important choosing the right Vocaloid for an appropriate song. I would say that if I was making a song, one issue that I would run into, because I think you and I own almost equal amounts of Vocaloids. One issue I would have is that I would get a new Vocaloid and instantly want to use them, but if I was going to be using it with a song that I had written, originally most of my songs were very soft. And so what I think probably one of the best examples of using a Vocaloid that maybe was not appropriate for the song was when I wrote a song called White Knight and I used Cull. And Cull is, for those of you who have never heard her voice or used her, she's an incredibly powerful vocalist. And not only that, but she's very nasally. And trying to force her into a genre that maybe she's not intended for takes either a great deal of skill or having to have suspension of disbelief, you know, in a way, because you know, certain vocalists, even though they may have great voices, just don't suit certain songs, just the same way that some real vocalists may not suit certain songs, but in their respective genres they will shine.
Yeah, like
sorry, my
no, I forget them. I switch up very green, but like sometimes they'll give me a Vocaloid and they're like, please use this Vocaloid, and I'm like, I will do my best to eventually find something that I can use them with. Like I kind of feel sorry for AHS because they gave Nana, and like I was like, oh yeah, I'll use her like as soon as possible, and then it took me. I haven't even used her like for my own stuff. I used her for a collaboration song. But like until then, I was like, I just can't find I can't find a perfect song for her, so I don't want to like force her into anything. So yeah, like that happens sometimes as well. Like I'll get a Vocaloid and I just can't use it until I find something that works.
Along those lines, in terms of making things work, how do you assess a Vocaloid's strength and weaknesses? How do you go about finding out what their ideal either range or capabilities are as a vocalist? Do you just test it a lot, or do you test with other VSQXs that you made, or do you just dive right into trying to tune it?
Well, I'll definitely, like, when I first get a Vocaloid, I'll definitely use one of my past VSQs just to like see. I've made a good amount of VSQs, so I have a bunch of different genres that I can kind of test it with. So like I can just kind of use a few different VSQs and see how, like, you know, how well they sing each one. And normally, like when I test each one, there'll always be some kind of like weird thing that pops out to me for like if the Vocaloid doesn't fit one song or one VSQ as well, it will kind of, or like I'm trying to think, like some tuning tricks I use. Sometimes they won't work on other Vocaloids. So it's an easy way to see like what stuff I normally do will work with the Vocaloid and what won't. Because if it doesn't work, then it'll just be like either an empty space or it'll like be a really buggy sound.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said about matching up the right song for the right person or the right voice. You see it a lot it sort of happens behind closed doors in the music industry with vocalists. You find a lot of artists who are also good songwriters they write more songs than they're ever able to like perform or record, either because the songs don't fit them stylistically, or they don't suit the album that they're going for. And if you want to know more about EPs and albums and why they're different, check out our last episode. But yeah, so you'll find that songwriter artists tend to essentially lend or give out their songs to other vocalists that would suit them better. So doing a song real justice in getting the right type of vocalist I think is very important, because imagine getting sort of a sort of Adele powerhouse anthem and asking someone with a weaker voice to try and hit those spikes. Like, there's only so much production you can do afterwards to help support the voice, whereas what you should be doing is accentuating the good parts of the voice and the performance. Trying to essentially fit a square peg in a round hole doesn't always give you the best output. So like it's it's very well noted that people do it in real life, and I think if you have the option and the opportunity, you should be selecting your Vocaloids with the same kind of rigor and forethought, because it's just as important to get the right tone and the right feel for your songs with Vocaloids as it is if you're using a real singer, or you're just doing your own art, your own work a disservice.
I think a lot of people, when they use Vocaloid, I mean, because you have the potential to literally put a note on any pitch, people don't really think if they really should or not, if that makes sense. They know Miku can go as high as physically possible, and they do it, but they don't think like, will this hurt people's ears or not? Like, yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people don't think further through, like, will this actually, like, work on people's ears? Like, will people not want to even listen to it if it's this high? But because it's Vocaloid, they'll still put the notes, like,
smash
way
it
up
up
there.
Right into the heavens. Also, think about the distances in between your notes. There are some jumps that are really hard to do as a vocalist, that are just like horrific to try and do. Tends to be anything over an octave is like really awkward.
If Stan was here, I would totally point out Echo is definitely an example of a song that is extremely hard to sing.
Yeah.
As we went to karaoke when we were in Japan, and we were singing it as a group. And that was the moment I was like, yeah, this is a song that probably shouldn't be sung by a person. Because it goes, woo, I mean, it's not. It's possible, but.
Yeah, I think there are examples, like Daft Punk is a good example with like Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, where the vocoded vocals do really ratchet up into the higher notes. But because of the computerized aesthetic that comes across, it's sort of you sort of go, okay, yeah, fine. You know, I'm not expecting a real person to sing this. So there are definite song aesthetics and like artistic choices you can make to make it more feasible. But for the most part, if you're just trying to do a cover, don't.
Yeah.
Or,
like, just don't.
think about it very carefully. I think is
one thing I have come to notice, especially with Japanese musicians, and I think all of us are guilty of this, is that I would say most of the Japanese producers who use Vocaloid are male. It's just something I've noticed. Funnily enough, along that vein, I've noticed that a lot of producers from the West are female. But I digress. I think that one thing with the Japanese Vocaloid songs that we get is that they have been written for the male's range. Like, he's probably writing it and he's singing along with it and he's like, oh, this is great. But then when he actually gets down to tuning the Vocaloid, he chooses probably Hatsune Miku or Rin, or one of the more popular female Vocaloids. And of course, even though he's singing it at a lower octave because he's male, when she can't go that low, or doesn't sound that good when she sings that low. So he brings it up to the higher female octave, and then of course it's really high up. I think a good example of that is probably Melt.
Yeah.
by Supercell. I feel like that one he was writing it and he was singing it much lower, but then she gets, because I remember when that song was during its heyday, there were all these female vocalists who tried to sing it and they were like straining their voices to hit those high notes, and then of course then there's a key change and all that stuff. So I wonder if that factors into it. I as a female producer, most of my songs that I produce are in my vocal range. So, and people find that interesting that I will tune Dinah to sing so low, and that she sounds good low. And that's part of the reason. It's because, one, I voiced her to have a good low range, but also I know what her ideal range is. So I try to keep it in her ideal range. So that's just an interesting approach to vocal tuning as a musician.
I've definitely I've had that experience with being asked to tune people's songs before, where like they would hand me the VSQ and I'd be like, oh man, this is like really high. And then I'd listen to the sample that they sent me like as a reference of them singing it. And it's in the male octave or like the lower octave. I'm like, oh, that's why Miku is like screeching up here in the so I have had that experience. Some people, like, it depends on the producers, do like make the melody at a more reasonable range, but it does depend on the person, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about tuning in your own vocal range and running sort of the vocal lines in your range. Mostly because if you're working outside of that range, you're not really sure what's feasible and what sounds good. Now I've got quite a reasonably low like singing range for if I'm actually singing. And I can stray higher to an extent. But if I was to write a vocal line, I'd write it definitely in my comfort zone, because I understand the note switches, where you can hold, where you can't. And so your tuning becomes more intuitive. Because you have this innate understanding of that note range, whereas if you stray outside of that by any sort of measurable degree, then you start getting into like this area where you're just speculating that it should work and it should be possible, and so it gets a bit weird from there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that experience as well, where like, well, not exactly, but like, for certain songs that I've been asked to do, they really wanted it in the higher octave, and I just could not, like, it hurt my ears, so I actually couldn't tune it that high. So I just tuned it in a range I could sing at, so I like knew how to tune it. And then when they wanted it, I just pushed. I mean, I didn't really want to do that, but it's up to them. So I pushed it up to the octave they wanted it.
Yeah,
and so,
yeah, especially when you're
method.
Yeah, especially in your case where you're working for, where you're basically commissioned to help someone else's project.
Yeah, in the end, it's their decision, so yes, I have to adapt where I can. Because tuning it that high, my ears were actually hurting, so I was like, I'm just gonna tune this lower.
Yeah, and as an engineer, all you can do essentially is advise. But hey, it's at that point. It always sucks that it's not your project, but yeah.
Well, sometimes I am happy that sometimes vocal producers, if they ask me to do stuff, they will take my advice at least on who to use. Like sometimes I do actually have the option to choose the Vocaloid, because they'll be using a Vocaloid, and I'll just kind of say like, hey, like actually here's here's the main vocals, but here's also main vocals with this other Vocaloid I think might work. And I leave it up to them, to choose. But I'm like, if you think that this might be better, here's a sample so you can make the decision.
Yeah.
But just saying, I think this might work.
It's like auditioning.
So I try to push them a little bit.
It's like auditioning vocalists for bands, and you've got to find. Again, it goes back to this point where you should find the right tone, and the right sort of the right character in the voice to match the project. Yeah, and there are going to be. I think it's very easy to. I think it should be mostly common sense that your softer voices, stuff like Ivana, for instance, should be for softer songs. Yes, you can use them in something a little bit more like rambunctious, I guess, like a little bit rowdier. But it's more of a high risk, high reward. If it works, it'll sound fantastic, or at least you will have circumvented the real problem areas. If it doesn't work, it can come off as really jarring. I think that's just the same as using a voice that is far more powerful or more rock orientated for like a slow soul jam. It just sounds a bit too weird, because the voice is not suited for that kind of genre.
Along those lines, I would say another really important aspect for tuning and for genres and stuff is also how realistic you make the voice sound. Because for certain genres, as we discussed, you may be unrealistic. You may want a Daft Punk vocoder sound, or you may want the Vocaloid to sing ear piercing because you're trying to reflect something in the song. But I think Celia, you and I, when we tune Vocaloids, we tried to make the Vocaloid sound as human as possible. Do you have any particular settings or plug you always as sort of like a routine when you're trying to get the best realism out of a voice?
Well, I mean, I guess that's also a little bit different because for me, I don't really shoot for realism. Actually, I just kind of shoot for the voice I think sounds the best, which is realistic and sometimes isn't. It just kind of depends. I don't know. I just kind of go for what I think sounds best, which can be different. I'm saying that depend on the genre as well. Like, if it's a softer song, I do tend to use like brightness a lot more to kind of emulate like build up in a voice and such. Whereas with stronger songs, even if you use brightness, it won't really shine much because like if it's a rock song, the instrumental will be loud enough that you won't really be able to hear the brightness anyway.
Pause for 1 second. The stream is stuttering a little bit. Just double checking.
I'm trying to keep my internet usage as minimal as possible. Are we back on? We're just about back on.
Yes, we're back.
I keep looking at the OBS KB per S flow, and